Well, Buck, you've worked in law enforcement, as our viewers know, for the CIA and for the new NYPD. My question is about the extraordinary violence that we see with these cartels. Our boss, Glenn Beck, has shown our audience ice coolers with heads. I mean, we're talking about beheadings, dismemberment, and does it get worse? I mean, it's pretty awful. Could we see that kind of violence happening north of our border, all the way up to, say, Wisconsin, where there were folks with, guns arming their marijuana supplies?
You could certainly see that level of violence anywhere. It's not an exaggeration to call these al-Qaeda level tactics. They clearly are willing to do anything, including, by the way, going after law enforcement and the most senior reaches of certainly the Mexican government. They are trying to pollute the system from the top down if they can. They'll try to buy off the most senior politicians. But that's why I want to ask you guys, how is it possible that we don't see more of this? I mean, I think, when I looked at this, I hadn't even heard about this Wisconsin grow operation.
The thing that really amazes me is that we see in Mexico the future that we could have if we allow these things to get further out of hand. In Mexico City just this past week, the government there had to deploy the military in one of essentially their suburbs, one of their most populous suburbs, to put down La Familia, one of the more active, cartel groups that has inspired even more violence there in recent weeks. What I'm really concerned about is the fact that we're not paying attention to the level of kidnappings that we're seeing in the Rio Grande Valley, in Phoenix, the rise of these things which actually is happening under the protection of our own law enforcement. The fact that we have a system that really sort of makes it difficult for cartels to battle each other here actually serves as a protection for their own activity.
And it's about the money, isn't it? You can buy for $2,000 in Colombia or Peru and sell it at street level for $100,000 a kilo. This is never going away.
When you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars, I don't care what you're going to do. As long as there's hundreds of billions of dollars out there, they can buy somebody off. And that's obviously what they're doing. And our guest mentioned that they're getting assistance from international banking community. I'd love to have expand on that a bit more to see how the international community is helping them.
Yeah, Robert, there we go. I mean, you know this as well as anybody. How sophisticated are their money laundering operations? How global in reach and scope are these cartels?
They're extraordinarily sophisticated, and they use some of the best and brightest minds in the world. One of the things that I recognized was that I wasn't dealing with the mind of Hollywood's version of Scarface. I was dealing with people who had the minds of a Bill Gates. These were people who, they could have been selling widgets. It really didn't matter. What they were doing was manufacturing at a cost of $500 per kilo. They had a $2,500 per kilo transportation cost. They usually paid that off by giving a percentage of the load over to the transporters. And then they sold it. And when I was in the business, it was selling for about $10,000 or $12,000 in pure profit on every single kilo. And there were tons and tons being moved even back then. Today we look at the semi-submersible subfleet that the Colombian cartels operate through the Pacific, in the Gulf of Mexico, in the Caribbean. Each one of those carries 15,000 pounds.
Robert, before we go, though, getting back to SC's question about how these cartels seem to be burrowing into American cities, drugs have always been profitable. People internationally have always been involved in funding them, selling them, distributing them, etc. But now we are seeing from 50 cities to nearly 1,300 of Mexican cartels in the United States. How did this happen?
Well, the manufacturing is also being pumped up. I've never seen the type of statistics that I've seen in the recent past. There's a story that came out in March of this year, $4 billion worth of methamphetamine that was seized at one time in Mexico. That's an unbelievable amount. That couldn't have even all been consumed in the United States. These are global organizations, and I just want to say that I think that one of the things that we're doing right is that the DEA Special Operations Division, especially through their Narco-Terrorism Operations Center called CENTOC, is doing a great job working with the intelligence community and the military, not just in this country, but in our ally nations. And that's the only way that we are going to be able to cut off the heads of the snake, is going to be through a real, true global cooperation by all of those elements.
Robert, they certainly have a tough job, and it looks like it's getting tougher. But thank you very much for joining us and sharing your expertise tonight.
Thank you.